It's something here. I'm going to tell you, there's something here, but that something is not going to be for everybody. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I'm just not sure if it's worth everybody's time. I'm going to be really honest with you.
You know, I mean, that's valid.
I mean, that's...
I don't know if it was worth mine. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Cinecism. I'm Eric.
It's your boy Dante, man, and today we're going to be doing a review on the Netflix original movie, Passing.
So Passing is about a woman by the name of Irene, or Rainey for short. She has 2 boys and a husband. While she's out and about one day, she stumbles upon a old friend. Her friend's name is Claire, and they start having a conversation, and come to find out, Claire is in fact married to a white man. Unbeknownst to him, his wife is actually a black woman. I guess at some point she has started to pass as a white woman intentionally to pursue a better life. Just to give some context, this movie takes place in the 1920s. So racial relations weren't at their best at that time.
This is a very interesting concept because I've seen this done in movies before, but I've never seen a movie that kind of primarily focused on something like this. Like I've seen Alex Haley's Queen, and there's scenes in Queen in which Holly is trying to pass for a white woman throughout there. In this movie, that's like the primary theme of it. And a lot of the ideas and the metaphors are built off of that concept. When I first heard about this movie, I thought that this movie was going to be all about that. But when you go further into this movie, it's got passing means a lot. Like it don't just mean passing for black or whatever in this movie. It's a lot of undertones and metaphors that's involved in here too.
Like sexual ones, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And other stuff too, but that's the main focused on one to me that felt the most blatant.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
What y'all doing?
Yeah, right.
It started off subtle, but then it just got more and more like...
But you know, even from the start, when she met her at that lounge, it was like a look. Yeah, it was a look.
Right?
Yes. Claire has left the city. This takes place in New York in the 1920s. Claire left the city, moved to Chicago with her husband. They have a life there. They're in town because he's there on business. And she was talking to her about, I hope I ran into you, and you know, I was hoping I see you, and I've been thinking about you. It didn't feel friendly to me.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Then there was a point in this movie that they made it blatantly clear when she like touched her hand.
Oh yeah.
And
that's when it was like basically.
Yeah, that's when they let you know, like, okay, got it.
Let's talk about Irene first, played by Tessa Thompson. So there's a major contrast between the two of them. Irene is much more reserved and kind of keeps her feelings and emotions more so under the radar. She has a very interesting relationship with her husband. Obviously there's still love there, but I feel like we kind of meet them at a point where they're kind of having conflicting perspectives, not only just on race relations, but also on like parenting and just a lot of different things. They seem like they're just going through, you know, just some of those marital issues. Aside from her underlying apparent sexual preference, you know, they're having, I mean, I'm sure that has a lot to do with some of their conflict too.
And then the undertone of him having a thing with Claire too.
Yeah.
This movie,
You know what though?
That was a lot less of an undertone.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Even so, it felt like it was almost encouraged. It was like some weird shit going on.
Yeah, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah, we're going to speak on it. Let's talk about Claire. Let's get it out the way so we can talk about what we want to talk about.
I want to talk about the movie.
So Claire is the more rambunctious, more outgoing one, far more outspoken, and a lot of men seem to have a very much of an affinity for her, very attracted to her, and she just stands out in every room she's in, man. It's like she's that person that everybody wants to get to know.
I just thought it was very interesting that, I mean, both of these women, I mean, what is beauty truly? But both of these women, I think, are objectively beautiful. And Irene's value of herself just seems to be a lot lower because she kept saying, oh, no, you're the pretty one. You're the pretty one. Both of them, I think, certainly felt like frenemies throughout this movie, but they never, the enemy part never felt very blatant. It just seemed like they both desired what the other had. You know what I'm saying? Claire's situation, making the choices that she had made to pass for white, she had to disconnect from her community, right? Her people, and she misses that. And she makes that blatantly clear throughout the movie that she misses being around her people. And I'm sure being in a situation where you can't be yourself is extremely damaging, you know. And her husband, he's a blatant racist. Like, he made that abundantly clear. So it's also like your safety is in jeopardy. But now you in too deep. You got a kid with this man. You married to him. So, you know, it's like no way out. But I will say, for somebody who had them type of that much at stake, she was sure the hell coming around a lot. Man, I was like, damn, nigga.
In the club. Like,
you know what I'm saying?
In the house. Like, what you?
This out here. Couldn't this put Irene family at risk? If she out in Harlem coming to this house all the time, neither one of them are happy. And that's what I think.
Yeah, they both envy each other's position.
It's that grass is greener on the other side type thing.
Irene is much more hostile with her envy than Claire is, obviously.
Absolutely. Let's talk about this fucking shit.
Where you want to start?
Man, I guess with their relationship. Let's start there.
Claire and Irene.
Yes.
Okay, we know they were friends at some point.
Yes.
You know there's some sexual ambiguity there or sexual suggestion there.
Yeah.
Of attraction.
Yeah.
Now this is where we get to the murky part, because why was Irene encouraging the husband to hang with Claire and go to places separate from her? Because she knew that he found her more attractive, or because she knew that they were kind of distant, like intimately at that point, or why was she encouraging that behavior?
I interpreted that a few ways. It almost felt like at some point she was trying to encourage it because she knew that she could not give him what he needed at that time. I think he needed a bit more of affection, a bit more. What I thought too. Yeah, that's how it felt.
Also, this is I know this is based on a book too, so I'm sure there's a lot of details that were probably omitted for the sake of keeping the movie at a decent runtime.
It's a lot to be interpreted by the viewer in this movie. Then it was parts in this movie where it felt like it wasn't encouraged. It felt like Claire was doing this stuff maybe out of her own selfishness or whatever, because then they had that whole conversation on the porch where she was like, I'm not a good person. Something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of, I'm not a good person like you are. You know, I'll do anything to get over. That's literally what she said, I think, is that I will do whatever it takes to get what I want. And I was like, well, what is that in reference to the husband? Or, like I said, a lot of stuff ain't answered here. I will say that I'm usually okay with that, but this movie needed to answer some stuff. Felt like they didn't answer a lot. What was up with the husband? Okay. This is my thing. It's no way they could have actually have been in a relationship because he was so blatantly ignoring his wife.
I think they probably were just, which was possibly common at that time. They were a functional unit. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It wasn't so much, obviously there wasn't romance there. So they were probably functioning as a family unit, probably like their priority, I think, probably at that point in time, instead of like having more of a romantic or intimate relationship. People didn't get divorced back then, you know, so they probably was just staying together for the sake of the kids.
That's a very good point. I would have to agree with that. It clearly was like, almost felt platonic in a lot of ways. You know, the romance had left. I don't know if we're at a place where they're just having a rough patch or if they're just, especially when they started to make more of the sexuality nuanced type of commentary. I really question if they were ever really romantic or whatever, or how romantic they ever were. I guess my thing was that if they were hinting at the fact that him and Claire were having an affair, then it was the most blatant affair that I've ever seen. Like, they always was kicking. I mean, there was a scene in this movie near the end where him and Claire, like, just, I mean, he hyped talking to Claire. They probably 10 paces ahead of his wife. I'm like, dude, now that's just crazy. Then they at a party, he only talking to Claire or only going around Claire while his wife is off in the corner somewhere.
They make it so obvious too when they pan the camera to them and they just like over there kicking it.
If you having an affair, then, I mean, Jesus, at least have some respect. Like, you at a party, you out and about with this woman. So I didn't know if they were really having an affair or if he had just taken a liking to her as a friend.
I think he was just like infatuated by her, and Irene just recognized that and she just let him do his thing. But then she started to probably get jealous, but not of just that, but other things too.
But it's like she didn't try to fight it. She just
encouraged it.
Yeah, she kind of just let it go, which was very weird.
I mean, we got to talk about the death. Cause, I mean, did she push her out the window or what?
That is the question.
Okay.
That's the question.
I mean, it was a tricky camera work, but from what I saw, it looked like she pushed her out the window.
Hard to say. It's certainly, that's certainly implied.
She looked like she didn't know whether or not she did it either.
And I think that's the thing. And see, that brings up a point that I I felt was that this movie at moments to me made it seem like she was having some type of mental problems, like a mental breakdown or something. I might have been imagining this, but I don't think that I was. There were moments in here, it's very subtle camera work in here, but there was one scene in particular where Claire and her husband and Irene's husband were having a conversation downstairs, right? They were getting ready to go to a party. Irene was coming down the stairs and saw a reflection of them in the mirror. Now, in that mirror, they look like they're standing a lot closer. But then when you see them in reality, they're at least 5 feet apart. So in my mind, it was like, is she imagining that there's something going on here? So she's trying to, like, I didn't know how much of them being a thing was real. I don't know if she really intentionally pushed her out the window or if it was an accident or if she,
I think she subconsciously, intentionally did it.
That's probably the best way to interpret that. First of all, what the fuck type apartment don't have no railing or no balcony? It was literally just a window. But this is the 20s, so maybe safety regulations and things like that weren't.
What are those?
It looked to me like she turned abruptly and Claire.
It was like a very heavily edited shot. This movie requires a lot of deductive reasoning that you have to just. It's like you got to critically think about a lot of these things yourself, and I think it was intentionally made that way. Where we are to form our own conclusions and assumptions about what we saw or experienced. Yeah. What I saw and what I experienced was a murder.
I do think it was more of a subconscious. Like you mentioned, she wasn't the type of person to express herself. And when you got a lot of that stuff built up, she didn't talk about anything that was bothering her. Claire was very vocal about the things that were bothering her in her life. Yeah. And Irene more so was just kind of silently taking it, even though you could tell she wasn't happy with the way that things were going with her kids. She wasn't happy with the race relation stuff. She wasn't
had minor outbursts every month.
Minor. But they were violent. It was like, and that's what usually happens in these situations. Not necessarily be a violent outburst, but it is more of a buildup where this pressure just kind of is bubbling below the surface and then it jolts out in these ways. Like she dropped them dishes. Every time she had an outburst, it wasn't a smooth transition. And I think this was one of them situations where maybe her emotions might have just got the best of her and she just had a momentary lapse in judgment and pushed her out the window. But she was clearly remorseful after. That's why I say I don't think that she really wanted to kill her, but she was...
She wanted to somewhere.
Yeah.
Down. Right. It came out to the surface.
You know, I guess the last thing that I say about this movie is that I was a bit disappointed. And I think that's because I thought we were going to get a certain type of movie. We didn't get that movie, which is always okay, right? I leave that up to the creators, but the movie that we got just wasn't as interesting as the concept. This movie reaches a certain moment where it felt like it plateaued. Then there's it's nothing happening substantial for a long time, and then the end of the movie. So they build up all this stuff about Claire and Irene. Right, being this romantic undertone, nothing's ever addressed there. I'm like, okay, that should, if anything should be addressed, it should have been that. A conversation, something that we got more concrete information about their history. But all right, you don't want to do that, fine. The husband and Claire heavily hinted at something going on there. I'm thinking that Irene's gonna have a conversation with her husband, or Claire's gonna have something. We're gonna bear witness. Nothing. Okay, those are the two main focuses of the movie. They don't even focus on the passing part, which I thought was gonna be the movie, which was about this woman and how she's dealing with pretending to be a white woman in society and how that's impacting her in her relationships. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was what we were gonna focus on, but we really didn't. It's there more as a metaphor, right? Yeah. For a lot of the other stuff. This movie just fell flat. And then there was a point where Irene was just lying in bed and I'm like, is she sick? Is she mentally ill or nothing? Yeah, they bypassed the shit. And then they was at a party. I'm like, well, what about her in bed? And then the way that she talked to her husband afterwards, it felt like there was events didn't feel intertwined. It felt like a lot of, that's why I was saying, I don't know if they were trying to actually have this whole conversation about her having mental illness, because they do that in movies like this where the main character is suffering from some type of a mental breakdown and things feel non-linear, right? It feel kind of all over the place to give you that feeling of them, but they don't ever state that blatantly. So I don't know what the fuck was going on, but things felt very out of order here in the way that they happened. I was like, they're not even reacting to what what we previously saw. I'm okay with movies not answering all the questions. In fact, some of my favorite movies do that. But there has to be enough moments of interest. They have to answer enough, give you enough where you felt like you experienced something. I didn't quite know what I experienced near the end of this. Like I said, at the moment, it just felt like I was watching nothing. Like nothing interesting was really happening. No interesting conversations. If you're going to do something where it's ambiguous, I would prefer that be done in the characters through dialogue. Having somebody laying around in bed or laying around the house or cleaning the house, it's just like, all right, I clearly she's not well, but I mean, that's just not enough.
Passing was a very interesting movie. As a film itself, I thought it was a decent watch. It just left some shit unanswered, which I kind of expected, I guess, but I feel like there's more questions than I would have liked. I thought the actors did a great job. It just was a very, very interesting dialogue between all of them, and I feel like none of the conversations had like any conclusion. They kind of were all just left open-ended. You know what I'm saying? Like to be addressed again in the future, and they just never really got addressed again. So it was shot well. I like the whole black and white. It really captured that era, even though I'm not from that era, but I thought comparatively from what I've seen movies do in that period of time before, I thought it looked pretty well done. I thought it was a decent movie, so I'm gonna give it a 6.5 for me.
I was really looking forward to this movie. Of what I thought the concept was really, really intrigued me. I will say they delivered on the acting. I just don't think there was a lot to work with here. As interesting as things were, and this movie keeps you interested, I will say that, but the payoff is just not there. There's really no payoff for any other questions that you have, and I'm okay with having questions at the end of a movie, but you have to answer some of them. I feel like if a movie is all build up, then like, what are we doing here? I enjoyed the curiosity that it gave me though, because like I said, this movie definitely kept me watching. These people are interesting people, for better or for worse. The movie being shot in black and white, even that subcontext I thought was very interesting too. Ultimately, I'm gonna give this movie a 6.5 as well.
Thank y'all for tuning in to our review of Passing. Hope y'all enjoyed that. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you have any suggested reviews that you'd like to shoot to us, don't forget to drop a comment below.
Absolutely. And if you guys have seen Passing, please let us know what you thought. How'd you feel about the concept? How'd you feel about the way it was executed? And if you have read the book, please let us know if there's some undertone that might not was represented in the movie that we certainly probably missed. And we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank y'all.
Peace.
See.